Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. We're going to be talking about setting up audit event filters within SQL Compliance Manager. And what is an audit event filter in the first place, and why would I want to set one up, right? So SQL Server, as we know, can be pretty noisy, right? And if I go look at one of these databases and I look at the events that have been audited, let's look at the last anytime, let's look at admin, let's look at backup. And interestingly, we don't see anything. Well, that's weird because I am auditing backups. Backups do occur on this database. They happen, frankly, every night. I do differentials every 2 hours, and I do a transaction log every 15 minutes. So why am I not seeing that within my audit history? Well, because I created an audit event filter to hide that. Let me look on another server. I may have an example. Here we go. So here's an example of backups that are showing up, but these backups are very different than those nightly full backups and 8-hour differentials and 15-minute T-logs, right? So sometimes I want to see a backup in my audit trail, sometimes I don't. Really, that has nothing to do with audit event filters. I'm just giving you an example. But to flesh this out a little bit, Bullet happened to be doing a backup of this database using OSQL 32. So you can see down here basically creating a native backup using OSQL 32, which unfortunately, for Bullet, is against the rules. Bullet's not supposed to be doing this on healthcare data because we expect healthcare data backups to be encrypted, and this version of SQL Server that's running the SQL Proto 2 does not have that facility built into it. So what do I do to make it easier for me to find anomalies like this where Bullet's not following the rules? Well, one of the ways to make it easier to find that kind of stuff is get rid of the stuff that's normal, right? So we have a tool here at IDERA called SQL Safe, and SQL Safe has encryption available for pretty much every version of SQL Server out there. So that's what we require our databases to be backed up with. Now, what we don't see, if you look at the application name here, is you don't see any backups done by SQL Safe. Well, why is that? If you go into the administration section, there's a filter in, or an option in here called audit event filters. And I created one called good backup. If I double click, you'll see, first off, I'm specifying an event type. So I'm trying to filter a certain event. In this case, the event type is a subcategory of the admin event category, a subcategory of that, which is backup. So database backup, log backup, table backup, etc. Right. So if a backup is detected in my audit trail, like we saw Bullet doing with OSQL 32, let's look even deeper. And then what am I asking it to look for? Well, I don't really care which server this happens on. I don't care which database it happens on, nor do I care which object it happens on. So I don't need to worry about filtering there. What I do need to worry about is filtering on application and login. So the backups that we expect to happen, that are scheduled to happen, that are part of our backup policies that we have internally here at IDERA, are supposed to be done with an application called SQL Safe Backup Service. So when it says specify application name, it says application names. It could be multiple. So maybe I use a little bit of backup exec or Tivoli or something like that, and SQL Safe, right? So I could put them all in here, but approved backup technologies, which in this case is SQL Safe. And it says listed, right? So if it's listed below, that will be included in the filter. And then the second thing I'm doing is we have two accounts that run that specific application. Sometimes SQL Safe does the backup, sometimes SQL Admin does the backup. So if either one of those accounts is using the SQL Safe backup service to do a backup on any of my SQL servers, we can just throw that stuff in the trash. It simplifies visualizing and understanding changes or events within the SQL Server, right? So when I went back and I went to find these broken or backups that were done outside of our backup policies or security controls, basically, they were easy to find because they were done by a specific application, non-approved. The other thing is, if I'm building a report, I can find that really easy. So if I was looking at something like a application activity statistics report, I'm not going to be sifting through a bunch of normal stuff to find the anomalies. Only the anomalies will show up. And not only that, when I build out my alert rule, such as the bad backup alert rule, I didn't have to go in there and specify a bunch of, check marks and things saying, oh, if it's done like this versus it done like that, because all the backups that were approved, right, the SQL Safe backups that were done, they never get to the level of alerting, right? So the reason why audit event filters are so important is it helps clean up the data so that when you're building the reports, when you're building alerts, when you're viewing things within the console, you're not looking at noise. So with all that being said, there are other ways that you could consider using event filters, right? So event filters also help with kind of noise within Management Studio, things like IntelliSense, community experience, different things like that that you just want cleaned up. Now, it is important to understand that event filters are secondary. And what I mean by that is we are auditing every single one of those backups, right? Every single one of those backups was collected. It came into SQL Compliance Manager, and then we filtered it out. So I wouldn't consider that a primary filter. Like if you don't want to see backups at all on a server, don't audit them, right? So, come out, don't turn on, well, I guess I have it turned on at the database level. Don't go into that database and say, collect admin events. If you don't need the admin events, don't check it, right? So do keep that in mind. It's not a primary filter, it's a secondary filter that'll help you clean things up. So with that, I appreciate everybody's time today. Hopefully this was helpful. Stay tuned for more videos on how to get more out of the IDERA applications.